Welcome back to the Nullified Take, where we've got the TNT takes for you on The Amazing Race, Season 34, Episode 4. I'm your host, Chris, and with me today, as always, is my co-host, Michelle. Hey, Michelle, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good, and also want to welcome a very loyal live listener here in the crowd, Lovable Nikki.
Hi, Nikki.
Welcome to the stream again, and you are right. What an episode.
Yes.
Michelle has warned me she's coming into this one hot, so we'll get into all of it throughout this recap. But I also want to say happy, I believe, Thursday over there, Lovable Nikki. At the moment, it might be actually Friday morning as we go into Friday evening here. I always get my times wrong with the states. But
Yeah.
Michelle, what an
Yes.
episode! We start off where we left off with Glenda and Lumumba. You know, they left us with, and I told you last week, I said, I'm calling it. They're probably immediately going to move on. There's going to be no struggles.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how it started. I mean, they had absolutely no struggles in the beginning. They got through the last bit of that roadblock, and Lumumba gets through it. And there's no indication as to how far behind, I guess, Dom and Rich they are at this stage as they're leaving that roadblock. But it is a good way, the structure of the episode, I think it worked out because they're the ones that kind of tells us that it's the mega leg. We hear it again. They tell us that it's going to be, them traveling through to Florence, which we heard in the previous episode. And I wrote it down somewhere, 125 miles they have to drive. So it's a pretty lengthy drive. It would have taken them probably like 2 to 3
2 hours around about. Yeah, I Googled to see where I was traveling to from Sydney. Yeah, not too bad. A nice little trek. Pity the people in the back seat can't go to sleep. But yeah.
Early morning start for Lovable Nikki, 5:30 a.m. on a Friday morning, so very early start. I think I'm normally like, are you an early riser, Michelle? Like, I don't feel like I'm an early riser at all.
I have to for work. I have to get out of bed by 6:15. But otherwise, weekends, if I can sleep to 10:30, that's me.
Yeah, I'm the same. Night owl. Like, it takes a lot to get me. Like, I don't sleep easily. Like, I go to bed, I'm rolling around, I'm always looking at, like, that's probably my problem. I'm always like on the phone, and like I've got blue screen going on until very late. And then Iga, welcome back to the live stream as well. 1:32 p.m. in Dubai. We truly have an international audience with us.
Love Dubai. Love that place.
Yeah, same. Well, they're going to the Middle East, right? It's Jordan potentially the next. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on this next leg. But Lumumba and Glenda, they're behind. They're under the pump. Both you and I know, Michelle, they're my favorite team. So I've been nervous this whole episode about Glenda and Lumumba having to get from the back, and work their way back into this game. But I just love them as a duo. I love the dynamic between them and how supportive they are of each other.
They were very happy today. Very happy in this episode.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that because there was a contrast at one point. I feel like the producers on purpose showed us their positive attitude versus the not so positive attitude of another racer in this specific episode that we definitely will get into. One of the questions or one of the things we sort of pondered about in the previous recap was, would they have to choose the other person to do the roadblock? And I think our answer was, I guess the question was answered by Lumumba and Glenda because Lumumba did both roadblocks in this mega league. So it looks like there was no limitation in regards to why Claire did it first, for instance. We said that may have been a strategy so Derek could do the second one, for instance.
Yeah.
It didn't look like that was the case. It looked like you could choose whoever to do it.
Yes.
And at this stage, I'm a little bit annoyed, Michelle, because is there a limit? I want to know about it. Like, they should put out.
Well, there usually is.
Yeah.
Whether there is in this season, we don't know because they change things up. They're changing things up quite a bit. So usually they have to be pretty even.
Yeah. Who was the racers way back? Was it Zach and Flo, where Zach did all the
Oh God,
all the
yes.
roadblocks back in the day? Like, he pretty much carried that team. And I think because of that, it's one of the reasons why they brought in a limit to how many, roadblocks a certain person can do. So I would like that to be more visible. And maybe they say this person has done 1 or 2, because we find out here as they're traveling to the roadblock, one of the very big controversial bits of this episode is going to be around Linton and Sherrick, who probably can't, dilly-dally around it for too long, and she talks about the fact that she's happy because their roadblock strategy is working. Her dad's doing everything, and she's not having to step up and do it yet, but obviously that's going to change this episode.
Going to have to.
Yeah, and this is the thing, is like, if he's done 3 of them, will the show hold them accountable? Like, because she does go into this episode, she chooses to do the roadblock. She has to do the roadblock. It is this sculpture that they have to do of it was a Leonardo da Vinci sculpture of David, I believe, and
well,
she
the
freaks
Thinker.
out.
I think it's called the Thinker or something like that. If it was the Thinker, it looked like the Thinker. But yes, yeah. Oh dear.
And we knew that there were trouble as they're traveling, right? As they're traveling, they're talking about this to the roadblock.
Yes.
And we knew that there was trouble.
But also, Dom was already having a go at him in the car, saying, you need to read the signs as well as drive. And I'm thinking, my God, Rich is in another country, and Dom's telling him to read the signs as well as drive somewhere strange. Like, no.
Yeah. High
Dom,
maintenance.
that's your job. You're in the back seat. That's your job.
Like, listen, Dom is the biggest drama queen that I have ever seen. Since we're talking about Dom and Rich now, as they're going to this roadblock, and her just being on his case about, look out for the signs, drive the car. He's got to read the map at one point. Like, I don't know what she was doing in the back there, except for freaking out.
Rich that's it.
Rich has got the patience of the Dalai Lama himself in dealing with Dom sometimes. Like, but they say opposites attract, Michelle. It's the yin and the yang, but sometimes that's what gets people together.
It's very strange, isn't it? Just very, very strange. He was just taking it on the chin and kept on going. And then, it didn't stop when they got to where they were going either.
No.
They were obviously last with it. They were last to get to there, weren't they?
I don't think that they got there completely last, but they were last to get out of that specific roadblock. They weren't completely last getting there, though. I believe Glenda and Lumumba still came in after them. I don't think Rich did a bad job either. But one of the funny scenes that had me rolling on the floor laughing at it was him driving into the city and saying, like, he's just feeling it out, and like he's trusting his gut and his intuition in regards to where to drive. And she's like, okay, if you got this feeling, that's that. Yeah, it's so them. It's so send positive vibes and energy, and that is going to get you to the right place. What are we watching, Michelle?
I know. It's come on. I just can't. I can't cope. I can't cope. And then she gets there and totally freaks out because she thinks she has to actually sculpt the damn thing. Like, really, look around, use a brain, and look at everybody else and think, oh, they all look really similar. They obviously all can't be really great sculptors. There's obviously something inside the block. Jesus.
Well, Lovable Nikki here says, I was also done with Dom. 4-hour penalty. I do not like quitters on The Amazing Race. The audacity to expect Rich to drive and navigate. And 4-hour penalty. Like, she was thinking that there is a chance in hell that the whole mega leg apparently took 12 hours. So you're willing to do 4 hours out of 12 hours. You're willing to take a penalty for that long? That's 25% of the time that it took them to do the whole leg. You're happy to take a penalty. Rich was completely right. And again, I take my hat off to him for just saying, listen, just go down there for 15 minutes, start chipping, believe that you're a sculpture or whatever, you can do this. Just at least attempt it. You haven't even tried it yet. She hasn't even knocked anything yet.
Didn't even read the clue properly, for one thing, because it said it on the clue.
Yeah.
And then she just wants to keep quitting, saying, I can't do this. I can't do this. Not even looking at other people.
Yeah. Shambles. Absolute shambles. But let's talk about the Roadblock as a whole, right?
Yep.
So I really enjoyed the location, firstly. And I was just thinking to myself the whole time while they're out there all struggling to get this statue out of this, bit of block that they've got to work through. There's this massively beautiful view of Florence in the bottom with all the houses and things. And I'm like, probably none of them are taking it in. And what was disappointing is because I feel like in previous seasons, you get that one team that will normally be like, I know I'm not supposed to take this in and how beautiful the area is, but you can't help it. And nothing. We didn't get a single person acknowledge the beauty of where they were at. It shows you how intense they were and how much pressure they were under to just get that done and get out of there.
It was just so beautiful. I mean, have you been to Florence or France?
Never. I've never been to Italy. I'd love to go to Italy.
It's gorgeous.
There's a very high likelihood I'm going to France next year for the Rugby World Cup in September. So if I do go to France, I'm definitely going to have to do a European trip because I can't go that far without doing more than just France,
Yes. And, I've been to a lot of places in Europe, and if I had to go back to the same place again, I would choose Italy because there's just so many amazing parts of Italy and they're all really different. Rome's got all the Roman ruins. Florence has got so many beautiful pieces of architecture, and they've also got a river system, but not as beautiful as Venice's river system, which is just gorgeous. And then you go down south to Capri, where there's lots of swimming. It depends what time of year you go. It's just a beautiful country. And
how easy is it to navigate? How easy is it to navigate in the country? Can you remember looking at road signs and things like that?
No, I didn't. I didn't because we were taken around, so I didn't have to personally do it.
But what's the language like? Is everybody fluent in English? Can it be difficult to find someone that can help you with directions?
There was a lot of English, yes. Okay. But I mean, we learned key phrases, things like, can I have a beer, please? Where's the toilet? Where's the train station? Things like that. So we knew how to say certain things. I was better in France because I can speak a bit of French. But it's beautiful.
Well, again, they're all getting there at different times. The military brothers, they're first in. We get the twins on their heels. The twins talk about the fact that the military brothers, they're just so damn good at navigating. And we've been saying that here for quite a while on the podcast, that is probably with the new format of The Amazing Race where, taxis are completely taken out of it. Public transport is taken out of it. If they do get something that involves public transport, it's normally chartered, which means that the people are hired by the production team. They know exactly where they're going. There's less chance for a random event to be your downfall in the game, which really plays into the hands of the military brothers. They're so good at navigating. I mean, even in this episode from the roadblock to getting to the detour, they beat the twins after the twins leave before them because they're just better at reading like a map and getting there. So, I mean, they're impressive. I know they didn't get first place here this episode, but they're still very impressive and must be the front runners with potentially the twins now who've also been very consistent to win this thing.
I know. I mean, you saw the guys driving through a very busy part and they didn't seem stressed at all. I mean, he was just looking around and then he just turned the wheel and he just seemed like he was driving in his own city. It didn't seem like he was pulling a sweat or no one was yelling. It just seems easy for them.
Well, I think, again, if you're the military brothers, I don't know their military record, but chances are they're looking like they're probably like early 30s, mid 30s, late 30s. They were probably at some stage stationed abroad and have been in some war type of situations. You know what I mean? So if you've been abroad and you've been in combat, I think that you do, in a lot of cases, keep a level head. You're more accustomed to dealing with pressure. Something like the race would feel so easy compared to having been in war situations. Like, for instance, I think a leg like this, where they didn't get to stop and they had to race two legs consistently, which means like there was a 12-hour leg. Let's just talk about that for a second. A 12-hour leg. Does that really seem so horrible to you, Michelle? People were complaining. Dom and Sharik, I mean, they were just completely out of it.
Yes.
Like, this was the hardest thing
No,
they've ever done. It's 12 hours.
no, 12 hours, nothing. Nothing compared to playing a live Survivor game for 14 hours in 8 degrees. That's what I did this year. 14 hours. Do you understand this? You understand that amount of strategy that is needed for 14 hours straight. So 12 hours, nothing. Nothing. I've done 7-hour races around Sydney. It's hard, but I could keep
Because
going.
it's mentally taxing, right? It's mentally,
Yeah, it's mentally. Yeah,
but again, like
they
had that period in the car. I guess it's still you're in a different country. Okay, so Igor's saying it was a 16-hour leg. I thought I heard in the episode somebody. I think it may have been a 16-hour leg for some of those that came in late. But I'm pretty sure that one of the teams, when they got there, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Michelle, said 12 hours.
No, I think they did say 12, but it would have been different for each team.
It would have been. Yeah. But still, I'm like, give me more. Firstly, Michelle, if this is what we need to get us the best, for me, this was the best episode. Now, I've got strong emotions about it, but that's why I love it, because I am pissed off. I'm angry about certain things that happen. That's what I want to be. I want the show to evoke joy, sadness, happiness, or anger from me when I'm watching it. And on this episode, they delivered. So now I'm wondering, should more of the legs be mega legs? Should we get more of this in the future? Make it harder. It seems like it's too easy for them if they unravel so quickly on these legs.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? When I'm doing my notes, I know it's a good leg if I've had to pause and I've had to write down so many quotes, which I have written so many quotes this episode, so I can actually read them out. I had to keep pausing. And even my little girl said, "Are you still watching the show?" I said, yeah. I'm just writing things down and I'll put it back on in a minute.
Awesome. I don't write down any quotes. So, this is your job today. It's your job today to bring out the good quotes that happen throughout this episode. But I think it played into the military brothers' hands. This type of leg, under this kind of pressure, going for this longer would have been nothing that they're not used to and haven't experienced probably before in like boot camps or being stationed abroad or anything like that. But the twins were definitely the surprise package of the episode. And they do get the sculpture first. They figure out first that they don't actually have to chisel the whole thing, that it is hidden below that. Luckily for Marcus, he's observant. He notices that Molly did find that hack to it and she knew what to do. And it was quite hilarious to see different teams get there and the panic that was like visible on their face of, oh no, I need to like do what they're doing. I need to like sculpture this thing. I would have absolutely freaked out.
What the hell? How do you even tackle that? Do you go down to the head first? You start at the feet? Like, how? Like, I'd have no idea. Like, even if it was just something simple like a bowl, like, I think I'd still freak out with that.
I think I've told you this before, Michelle. I was artistic in the way that I could sing and act in school. Like, I love doing both of those things, but I was not good at drawing. Anything with like actual arts, like, was not my thing. So I would have freaked out if I had to go out there and do this thing. I would have been just as panicked as probably Dom, but I would have at least given it a go. I would have been like, this is not what I do. This is not what I do.
This is not what I do. Is the Amazing Race and the tasks in the Amazing Race what anybody does? Like, apart from skydiving, which someone might do, who's going to deliver cheese to a restaurant? Like, who is going to, shepherd goats together? No, this is not what anybody does, but you do it on the race. Like that line, this is not what I do. This is not what I do. Oh my God.
But I honestly think that Dom and Rich, and I could be so wrong. I mean, I clearly don't do as much homework about some of these contestants as other people do. So I'm sure they'll correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about this. I just don't think Dom and Rich were fans of the show. I feel like they were recruited to come and do it because of the personality of Dom. Definitely not the personality of Rich, because he's been a wallflower for most of it. Like I mean, hats off to him. He's a nice guy. And I think I would be great friends with him. He just seems like a really down-to-earth person. But he's not the personality. He's not the one that got them on the show. It was clearly Dom. They clearly probably saw... They probably saw their online presence, saw what they did outside of the race, and got them to do it. So I feel like Dom may or may not have been prepared for this.
True.
Yeah. So yeah, so I mean, obviously they struggle. The rest of the team seemed to figure it out
Mm.
pretty decently. It wasn't too much of a struggle for them. But the other
Except
team,
when
the
they chip
team,
off a forehead
yes, which we're going
or
to get
part of
into
a
right
leg.
now, which we're going to get into right now. A lovable Nikki here says, "I'm done with Sharik. So negative and spoiled. Her father deserves better." And Sharik came into this thing and anxiety. Let's just start off with this. If you don't struggle with anxiety, I think it's very hard for us to appreciate how difficult it can be and how people get into their own head. There's some
Mm.
things we don't get because, like, I don't know if you struggle with it, Michelle. I
No.
don't, so I can't speak to someone that does struggle with it. But
Yeah.
I feel like this is a fail on so many levels to get Sharik to go out there. Now, if she overcomes this and she can show that she's got a fighting spirit in her and she wants to turn it over, this could still turn out to be a very good W for her by the end of the season. But she's putting herself out on national/international TV. She's reacting in this way. This is something she
Yeah.
struggled with her whole life. I don't know who to blame more here, Michelle. Do we blame her dad for pushing her to do this? Or do we
No,
blame Sharik for accepting this when she knew she may freak out and have one of these episodes? Because to me, what it looked like someone that was spoiled, who weren't getting
yes.
their way, and has
Yeah,
never had to do anything hard in their life. They've never been challenged at anything
exactly.
and they freaked out. But again, I'm saying this as a person who does not struggle with anxiety, but that's what it looks
Does
like.
she have anxiety though?
That's what she said. She said
Yes.
she
Okay.
struggles. She said in the beginning of the
Right.
episode, I struggle with severe anxiety. And she said, I've set strong boundaries for myself. And then when I feel like that has been reached or I've overstepped those boundaries, I shut down basically.
Mm.
So she definitely mentioned that. And I appreciate that, Sharik. If Sharik ever listens to this, I'm not coming at you for your anxiety or anything like that. But as someone who's a fan of the show, who wants to see people compete, it was so hard to see. And I know for you it's harder, Michelle, because you've
Oh my
applied
God.
for the Amazing Race Australia many a times, and to see
Yeah.
someone that wants to quit.
Just saying that she was tired, her arms were hurting. Yeah, your arms were hurting, but you go through it and you just continue on. Yeah, everything's going to hurt. Your whole body's going to hurt. I'm sure the whole body was hurting after so many hours of racing. But you just don't whinge like that so much over, oh, I'm tired. When they finished the sculpting, she just said, I'm just tired. My arms are hurting. I want to quit. I'm done. Yeah, I couldn't cope. And poor dad is trying his best. He's not getting angry with her. He's being very soft with her and trying to turn her around, but she was having none of that. She was being like a spoilt child. And it was really annoying me for the people who want to be on the show, for the people who have wanted it for 20 years, like me. There's so many of us. 20 years, and then you get this woman on who says these things like, if the meat spills, we're going to have to do it again, and I for one will not be doing it again. Or dad's asking about directions. He says, I wasn't paying attention
Yeah,
when
she
dad
was not
asked us
helpful.
to
She
do
was
it.
sabotaging. And
Yeah, I'm not tired anymore. I just want to go home. Well, Sharik, I'm no holes barred. If you wanted to
yeah,
go home, you should have gone home, not just kept saying it. Like I'm assuming you're going to carry on for your father the next few episodes. Why did you go on the show and take someone else's spot if you want to quit? I mean,
yeah,
I totally hate that. And I don't hate things in the world. I love
no,
everything. I work with 5-year-olds. I love everything, rainbows and unicorns and all that stuff.
yeah. This is the most heated I've ever seen you. This is by
I
far the
know
most heated I've ever seen you.
I'm so angry with people who want to quit and have taken someone else's spot, someone who is passionate, someone who wants to do it more than anything, someone who'd want to pay someone just to go on the race. And then she
Yeah.
does that. She's just, I don't use certain words, she's just spoilt, so spoilt.
Mm.
And
I got that. I definitely got
can't
that
cope with her.
feeling. Like the whole thing about, the chisel and do you know how sore my arms were, asking it of Phil, of all
I don't
people.
care how sore your arms are, Sharik. It's a race. Just do it.
And it's like, have you done
Jesus,
nothing
she needs
physical in your
kids.
life? Like
She needs
anything physical?
kids to understand living, working full time, having 4 hours sleep, and going to school or going to work just when your child's vomited on you. She needs a dose of the real world. Oh my God. You
Yeah.
know what? I've never had one of these rants on camera because normally I'm on a verbal podcast. And if
Yeah.
Michael watches this, he'll be like, Jesus, she's letting loose. Because normally I don't do this on camera.
Who's Michael? Who's Michael? Let people know.
Michael is he does podcasting RTV Warriors. He does
All right.
Hunted with me. We used to do the Amazing Race a few years ago before he lost faith in the franchise.
Yeah.
And yes, him and Logan and I used to do Amazing Race podcasts. So
Well, Michelle, you're the voice of, like, I'm a fan of The Amazing Race, but I'm definitely more casual than you. You live and breathe this. You run you're an admin. You are one of the group creators for the Amazing Race fans page on Facebook, and also the Amazing Race Australia fan page on Facebook as well. Like, you literally live and breathe this thing. So if you weren't annoyed by what's happened this episode, I would have been disappointed, because you live and breathe this thing at a different level compared to most people. And that's why people like, Lovable Nikki is saying, go off, Michelle, because you're speaking for all the fans that don't have a voice, that are frustrated about how this thing played out. And I think it has to be said, the only thing that I have in defense of Sharik here, and I love to play this advocate. No. The only thing is the whole thing about, and I've already said it, I preempted it, is that thing that both of us don't know what it feels like to struggle with anxiety.
yeah.
But I do think that at the point where, and again, this is me just being completely oblivious to what it must feel like to be her, right? But they were already done with that roadblock that gave her issues. And like you said, she was still sabotaging her dad every step of the way. She wasn't even attempting to help him.
She didn't care. And I've seen people on the race who have anxiety. There've been quite a few people, and but they had issues at doing a challenge and got very frustrated, or they get frustrated with their partner. But at no point were they just so defeatist. They dealt with the anxiety that they were having, and they worked through it. And she just wasn't ready to work through anything. She gave such a hard time to her dad. Her dad didn't deserve it. Like, the poor guy, he just wants to be on the race. She was being awful to him. I feel sad for him. And she shouldn't have applied.
Yeah, well, hey, we've got someone here correcting me on Rich and Dom. Apparently, they did apply for the race, according to Venus Boy. They did say so on Rob's podcast. So, apologies, Rich and Dom. You clearly knew that what you were getting in for. So now there's even less of a reason for Dom to, freak out about what happened. But I will say one thing: I felt really bad for Dom and Rich this episode, because at least I know Dom wanted to quit, but she didn't quit.
Yes.
And after that, she had a freak out moment. But after that, she locked it in, and she worked with Rich to get the rest of it done. In fact, I think she may have been the one that actually helped them memorize all the different things and get it right for them to continue. So I would have much rather, between those two teams, would have seen Rich and Dom continue, because at least they would have had a fighting spirit. And I did think that they brought something from an entertainment value. I did actually enjoy their Dom's confessionals.
She worked through it, and she... even though I was annoyed with her not even thinking about the sculpture and wanting to quit and take the 4-hour penalty, she'd redeemed herself by the end of the episode, because she actually tried. And, they were working so well together to do the last task, and, trying to find where they were supposed to go. And I thought it was, a redeeming quality of hers. And then, and then you get the opposite, then you get Sharik.
Yeah. The one thing here, and I mean, before we move on from Sharik, was this one here. Lovable Nikki says Sharik had so many holes because she didn't want to do it. She was being careless probably at that point, just chipping away, really just frustrated, wanted her own way. In my opinion, she was like a grown-up child having a tantrum, and no one could talk reason to her. In fact, trying to talk reason to her didn't work. Iga saying Linton encouraged her by giving her water. I think he did a lot more than just that. I think he really tried to reason with her, stay calm. He's probably very well aware of how she can get when she gets in her own head. I'm very interested to hear her talk about this leg when they do eventually exit, because I don't see them winning. I'm happy for Linton. I'm happy that he's still in the game.
Same.
And at this point, I'm shouting for Linton more than Sharik. Nobody's unredeemable in my eyes. Like, she could still come back and acknowledge the next episode. Like, I was a diva. I was so bad this last episode. I don't know what was wrong with me. I'm going to pull my head in. I'm going to come back. I'm not going to hate her for the rest of the season if she can pull it back. But if there's going to be more of this behavior, it's going to be a no from me throughout this whole season from here on out. I'm not getting behind that team for sure. But another interesting thing happened here, Michelle, that I thought we could jump into. When they left the Roadblock, there were two teams that finally talked about potentially working together. And we had Quentin and Maddie and Louis and Michelle form some sort of an alliance, because we've been talking about the fact that there hasn't been alliances. They decide to take, which I thought, and you can tell me if you disagree with this, I thought window of opportunity would have been the more difficult one to do, because they had 150 windows that they had to go to get 3 items from 150 windows. Like, it seemed in a town like that seemed really difficult, seemed very time consuming compared to if you just have a good memory, you can just memorize things. But they said 4 heads are better than 1, but they kind of followed each other to the same window. So I don't know if that alliance really helped, but at least they had moral support, I guess.
Exactly. That's the moral support of knowing you're not alone. Because even if you're the last 2 teams, which normally people don't pair up if you're the last 2, but if you're thinking you're near the back, you know, at least you complete the task together, and then it's a race to the mat. You know, you have some sort of knowledge that you may not be totally last if you're working with somebody else. So I understand that. And I thought Luis was funny. Oh my God, when he got that plate of meat, antipasto, and
he was good this whole episode.
What did he say? He said,
"Oh, can I have some?
Can I eat this? No. Can I eat this? Can I eat this? No." And then he looks at the camera, straight down the camera, deadpan, and gives it this look. And I laughed out loud. I thought, oh my God, that's the funniest bit. In between Sharik, I was angry, and then I laughed, and then Sharik, I was angry again.
Yeah. I mean, I just thought I would be exactly the same. I get hungry. I eat a lot. Like, I eat 5-6 times a day, smaller portions, but I've got a fast metabolism, always had to eat something.
But just no.
She was very stern with him. He also had a great moment earlier in the episode where he was like doing his presenter voice or voiceover, you know, double the legs, the amazing race, double the roadblocks. You know, like, it was amazing. So he had a good episode, because I felt like Louise and Michelle, they were kind of like similar to like Aubrey and Dave. Like, who is Aubrey and Dave? We know that they're ballroom dancers, but apparently they've come out and said that they're not ballroom dancers. But outside of that, I don't know.
Sometimes they're around, sometimes they're not. I'm like,
they're just there.
Like, now Dom and Rich are gone, we're going to see more of the others. Like, she's a big personality, so we'll get
Aubrey?
More of the others. Huh?
Who do you? Sorry. Yeah. Okay, I get what you're
Dom,
saying.
Because Dom's gone.
Yeah, she took a bit of screen time up until this point. But the other team that leaves at the exact same time as Quentin and Maddie, who have had a real cool down episode, makes me wonder if they're really going to win this thing, because I said they could be a dark horse team. I feel like they're a solid team, but I don't feel like we're following their journey. Right at this point, I don't feel like I'm following their journey like I knew I was following Kim and Penn's journey last season. How I feel like I'm following Glenda and Lumumba's journey this season. Like, I really feel like they're the winner pick for me at this point, but could completely be wrong about this, because they've fallen quite a lot. And there is a couple of other teams like the Twins. You're definitely following their story. You're definitely following the Military Brothers story. I would say those are the 3 teams that have probably got the strongest edit. I know you don't look into these things. But those are the 3.
What happened to Derek and Claire? They were one of my winner picks. Where are they? They're down to 7th. Like, what the hell?
I'm not ready to write them off yet.
No.
But I just feel like they're a team that's going to go reasonably far. I don't know if they'll win this thing. I feel like if they were winning it, we'd have seen a little bit more. But they're great TV, though. Like, the way they talk to the cameras, the charisma they have with the other teams. Like, I think they're a great addition to the season.
Yes.
So the longer they're on our screens, the happier I am about it, because I feel like they're bringing something to the show at this stage. So I'm happy with that. But coming back to my original point, I went on a tangent, as I do. But
Yes.
coming back to my original point, we had Abby and Will, Louis and Michelle, and Quentin and Maddie all leaving at the same time. But Abby and Will, who've also been very quiet this season, we hear a little bit about them or their strategy this specific episode. They say that they want to work solo. They don't want to work with those other two teams. They would rather run their own race, and it does end up paying off for them pretty well, because they do at some point overtake both of those teams when they left behind them originally. So they could be another dark horse team. Maybe it's just, I feel like they've got pretty bland maybe personalities at this stage, but it's hard to tell because we haven't seen enough of them. But they seem to be a team to be reckoned with, because they're making their way up. They're the opposite of Claire and Derek. They're getting stronger and stronger as the race continues.
See, alliances are good, and sometimes you need them. The Sydney races I've done with other people, we like to stay together. But then all of a sudden, if you've done a challenge faster than your friends, you just leave. You don't want to hang around, because they might end up, costing you a place at the end. And so you just leave. So the people who want to go out on their own, I value, because they don't want to be held back, because sometimes you'd feel bad if you leave before someone else, or you might feel like you have to give them a clue, have to give them some help, and you might not want that on your back in the end. Say if the other team gets there before you, which has happened on the race. Another team's helped another team, and that team ends up going because the other team's gone ahead. It's
Catch
pros
22.
and cons.
Yeah, I think that for me, if I had to do the race, I'd want to just focus on myself. I would rather go out because I did something wrong than go out because I followed someone else and they were the reason that we ended up going down the wrong direction or did something wrong. I'm not saying that there wouldn't be key points within a challenge that it wouldn't make sense to potentially team up, but I wouldn't want to be too tightly joined at the hip with another team throughout the race. I think that strategy has worked in some of the last seasons that we've seen where U-turns were a thing, but U-turns are not now even a part of this race. So you don't even have to worry about teams teaming up against you to make the race harder for you, which maybe in that way it's making it better.
Do you think there's no U-turns at all? Do you think there won't be any? Someone asked me that the other day and I said, I don't know, actually.
I don't think I think it's the same format, but I could be very wrong, that we've had last season where we probably don't get to see it. Lovable Nikki here says Lulu and Lala's fade one leg last season when they were following another team. I can't remember the exact leg, but I do remember there was one point. Yes, when they were working with, wasn't it the Dusty and Ryan, and they had some sort of Dusty said he was very confident he could do something, and then it ended up blowing up in their face, and they were all like held back a little bit. Also, Lovable Nikki asking here, the food from the windows looks delicious. Do you get a penalty for eating a bit?
Probably.
I listened to the instructions. The instructions said you had to take the food intact to the people at the diner or wherever they were sitting. So I think that if some of the food was missing, they would have sent you back to go get another plate of that food. And it probably would have meant that you couldn't move on. So it would have been difficult, man, if you're hungry and you haven't eaten for a long time because you've been on this race.
Too.
Yeah,
and those windows, can we just talk about that? What an amazing part of history. Bubonic Plague, they were used. And obviously they said that they were used during COVID as well. I mean, Italy was hit really badly, beginning of COVID. And, I just remember looking at there were cams, live cameras on parts of Italy when it was COVID. And I would look at the Trevi Fountain and I would look at all the different places in Rome, and there was no one there. There was literally a man and his dog would walk through where there would normally be hundreds, thousands of people. And just to have those windows and they were used again, I just thought that was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful, beautiful part of the world. It really made me want to go there to see the architecture in person, because I do feel like when you see it over a TV screen, it's beautiful, but it's not quite the same. Compared to being there, experiencing the culture. I've heard so many things about the Italians in general and their hospitality and how they like to, live their lives out there, drinking great wine, eating great pasta. Like I just want to be there and
Oh,
experience it, to be honest. So
pasta. I
mm,
had one of my best pizzas of my life at an Italian truck stop. A truck
I
stop.
believe you. I
Oh
believe
my
you.
God. It was
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah. It's funny. This is going to sound really bad, but I remember when I went to Japan a couple of years ago in 2019. And when I went there with a mate of mine who's been to Japan quite a few times, and he would say, like, okay, we're going to go find some restaurants to eat. And he's like, when it looks grimy outside and it's like old and run down, those are the best ones. They've got the best food. It's like, if
Yeah,
you get in there, it sounds bad. You're like, oh man, that place looks run down, but it's been there for ages. It's probably like third, fourth generation chef making you some nice ramen
exactly.
when you get in there. Obviously inside Japanese are like clean as hell, so it would be fine, but it's just, you got to find these hidden gems. So I'm not surprised that you found something that was off the beaten track that had the best pizza. And you know what? Pizza is my weakness. If people ask me, like, what is your weakness with food? It's pizza. Like, I love pizza. I know it's not the best for you,
Uh,
but I won't say no to a cheeky pizza every now and again. We actually made some homemade pizzas last Saturday at a mate's place. We had it in like our
Yum.
own. He's got a wooden oven, made it in there, and it was like, oh, it was beautiful, beautiful pizzas.
Amazing.
So I definitely
Amazing.
want to go there just to experience that. But
Yes.
you know, which one of these two do you think would have been the way to go? Like, if you were there and you had to choose between Eye for Fashion and Window of Opportunity, which way would you have leaned towards?
Look, I know the tasks that they have for like Eye for Fashion, they're usually very meticulous and you can go wrong in so many ways and you can be there forever. Whereas with the windows, I'm assuming those three windows would have been not too far away from each other, but you would have had to go down a lot of streets to find them. I don't think they would have been a long way away. With Florence, there is a part that's mainly shops and restaurants, and then the residential is somewhere else. So I'm assuming it would be in the central part where all the food is. So I would have personally gone for the food. What would you have done?
You see, when I first saw that, I was like, Eye for Fashion, because I'm a visual learner and
Yes.
an oral learner. So I take a lot in visually. Like, if I can see it, I can remember it. So I feel like I've got a very good memory. I probably would have leaned towards that because I would have thought I could knock this out very quickly. And when you get to the place where you've got to put down, the different items and match them up, the trick is in getting through the first bit as quickly as you can, not spend too much time, because
Mm,
they always bowl you when you have to show it. So rather go there once, fail it, but know what's ahead of you, and then go back and retract. So I feel like that would have been the strategy. But one of the things that was very unclear to me in this episode, I don't know if you picked it up, I watched this episode twice because I wanted to get that bit again. I
mm.
don't know if the military brothers and the twins actually had to go back to re-look at things and then come back. I feel like they could have just kept guessing it. They didn't make them run back.
Yes.
That's what it
I
looked like.
thought you could, because if there aren't that many backgrounds, then you could have just kept slotting another background in. And if you slotted every background in
You're going to
and
get
they're
there
all
eventually.
wrong, it's the close, you
Mm,
know,
mm.
process of elimination. So yeah, do they have to go back? It didn't say.
It wasn't clear. It didn't look like it
No.
because the twins were like, oh, the military brothers are not looking at things the same way we do. And then they got there and it's like, okay, did the twins get it on their first go or did they not get it on their first go? The military brothers definitely didn't, but then the military brothers ended up leaving with them, kind of like it was very the time. I get confused sometimes with how they edit the show. I
Yeah.
think they do it for the drama. They want people to think that they're closer to each other than what they probably are. But how did you feel about the twins ultimately, beating the brothers here, getting their first dub? I know you're a big 20 fan.
Yes, I
Um,
am. I'm so
yeah, how did it feel?
excited. And you know what even made me more excited? They actually met my favorite team, Justin and Diana, this week. They were obviously in the same city or something was going on, and there's a photo of them together. I'm like, yes, this is like fantastic. I know that I
That's
love them.
awesome.
I
That's
love
awesome.
them.
Just
And they
want to
won
bring
a
up
trip
here.
to Sydney.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you about that in
Sorry,
one sec.
Nikki.
Lovable Nikki saying, my
My
weakness
weakness
with
is food.
food is food.
Yes, same.
Yeah.
Same, Nikki. I am really bad at a buffet. I will keep eating till I feel physically sick. Especially a seafood buffet, Nikki. Oh my God. I once went to a seafood buffet with my husband, and my we had another table next to us. It was another couple. And Tom said to me, he's looking at you. And I said, oh, why? He said, I think you've eaten too many oysters. And I was on to my third dozen. So maybe. But yeah, put a buffet in front of me. I'm on it.
Yeah, I'm a picky eater. Like some stuff I can eat, some stuff I'm like, not for me. I've told Nikki many a times in some of the lives we've done for the challenge, like the eating portion of that, because they eat the grossest stuff. You think Survivor was bad, way worse in the challenge, and it's normally in the finale. I'm like, it's not even just the daily challenge; it's the finale. You've got to eat the food, and I'm like, oh, like if I could do all the physical stuff, I could get through all of that. The food would just get me every single time.
Well, you know, you didn't watch the Australian season this year, but in the finale there was an eating challenge, and they had to blue crabs. God, I love crab, Nikki. It's so good.
Just for those that are listening, Lovable Nikki is saying, yes, seafood. I'm from Maryland, home of the blue crabs.
There was a final challenge. They had to eat sweet and sour pork. Sounds good. Except their partner was feeding them with giant chopsticks, which were the size of pool cues. And they had to have the food above a certain point on the table. So probably about their mouth height. So the food couldn't be down low. It had to be up here, and they had to sort of eat it and catch it. And it was absolutely hilarious to watch. But that was, you know, a nice food to eat. But yeah, there's lots of awful foods.
Yeah, I've gotten better. Like I used to be even way worse with like the pickiness of my food, and I've widened my horizons and started eating some other things, except for steak and veg, like typical European like meal, which is what I was raised on basically. Yes. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how we got into food for this long.
I don't know.
We did. We talked about the twins. They get into first place, right? They win this trip to Sydney. Was the trip that they won to Sydney good? Do you highly recommend those places to international viewers and listeners of the show?
That's what people do. They go to the Blue Mountains, which is around 2 hours. So it's around the same amount of space to where they had to drive distance. They go to the Hunter Valley. Hunter Valley is a wine region. You can have lots of fun there. And then they get to cook a barbecue, which is amazing. It doesn't sound as amazing as your barbecues, your South African barbecues. So it's got a certain name. What's your South African barbecue?
We call it a braai, and it's like it's such a big cultural thing.
Huge thing over there.
Like if you do a braai, like just for those people that are international, for South Africans, if you ever know a South African or you've ever come across them somewhere in the States, believe it or not, we are spread around the world. If they tell you that they're going to have a braai, just know you need to bring snacks with you, eat some food before you go, because it is an event. It takes 8 hours to cook the braai. Like you're not going to eat when you get there. It takes time. It's about socializing around the campfire and doing your barbecue from there. And there's a bunch of stuff. Maybe one day I'll live stream a braai for some of the international viewers. I'll show them how to do it.
Yes. I mean, it would only be a simple cooking barbecue thing that they were doing. And then they also had a private cruise on the harbour, which, our harbour is widely seen as the most beautiful harbour in the world. So it is a lovely harbour to go for a little cruise on. So that is an amazing prize. And now I have to text them and find out when they're coming here.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I need to know when they're here now.
Yeah, you gotta show them some Australian hospitality when they're in your neck of the woods, and I think they'll absolutely love it. So I hope you do get to make that communication, make contact with them. We're gonna have to try and reach out to them now. Like I'll try and see what we can do. Last year the Amazing Race contestants were very friendly and very engaging, so who knows, they might be again. It seems easier to get in touch with some of these amazing races than what it is to sometimes get in touch with people from other reality TV shows. They seem real down to earth in that, so we're definitely gonna have to reach out. But Abby and Will ultimately gets third place. They just straight past Quentin, Maddie, Louis and Michelle, who are in fourth and fifth place. Aubrey and David may as well play Where's Waldo sometimes in the episode, but they somewhere get into sixth place here. And then Derek and Claire, we also didn't get to see much of their journey this time. No. They were kind of very under-edited, but they still got a bit of content, just enough for us to know they're still there. So I don't feel fearful that they, like at this point, I feel like Derek and Claire is like a fifth place, fourth place team. That's kind of where I'm putting them. I could be completely wrong, but it's where I'm seeing them. But then the big one here is my team, the
They were really
people that needs to
happy.
win this whole season. There is no better team, let it be known, than Glenda and Lumumba. They come from behind, from this first
Yeah,
league, and they get in on 8th place. They're both crying. They're both so happy. How can you not like Glenda and Lumumba, Michelle? Like, how can
they're
you not
so
root
sweet.
for
I
them?
like them. I don't think they're going to win, but I like them.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're an awesome pair. I love them together. I love the vibes they have, positive vibes. Lumumba seems like just a great guy, and
Yeah,
Glenda, just the right person for him. They get the best out of each other here. Lumumba stepped up twice here doing the roadblock, really
yeah,
doing well to make time up from behind. And then
yes.
ultimately, this means that the finale, the final placement, is going to be between Linton and Sharik and Rich and Dom, ultimately with Linton and Sharik ending just before them. And Sharik, says, I want to go back to New York. And Phil's like, okay, well, here's the thing. You got 9th place. You're still in the race. But if you want to quit, you can quit. You can go home right now. And he puts it on her. And suddenly
I
she's like,
love that because he
yeah,
is passionate about the race as well. And he
you could
doesn't want
see.
someone in it for the sake of it. He wants people to be passionate about it like him. And I'm glad he put it to her like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. And same, because he was like, listen, are you sure? Because, he knew that Dom and Rich, and I'm sure that they love Dom and her
Mm,
personality and what she was bringing to the show. He's
exactly.
like, we're going to lose this team for a team that's like half in it. I felt so
Yeah.
bad for the dad because he deserves to continue. And luckily, she's like,
Mm.
I'll do it for you and only for you. But if I had to put money, if I was a betting man right now, I would say this behavior is only the beginning. We're going to see
Yeah.
her freak out somewhere down the line. Will they change the rules for her not to have to do another roadblock? Because then I'm less interested in this team. I
I
want it to
don't
be
think
fair.
they'd
I want it to be
change it for
balanced.
her. No, because they'd rather see her crash and burn than not let her do a roadblock.
Yeah.
Better TV to watch her do that all over again.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of side eye that Phil gave her, it was like,
Yes.
it's like, oh man,
Love
I
it.
would not have wanted to be her, but she deserved it after that leg.
Yeah.
And Lovable Nikki is saying, I'm surprised at how close the last teams were actually, seeing that they didn't notice each other
Mm.
as well. Very close. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the end of this leg. Pretty straightforward. Is there anything you felt like we didn't touch on in regards to what happened in this last episode? I feel like
Um,
we touched on all the major points.
just one thing. Their bum bags are bigger. Now,
I did not
Americans,
notice that.
we call them fanny packs. Bum bags, they're huge. They're so like wide out from their body now. They used to be a lot smaller. And yeah, I'm thinking, geez, how much have you got stuffed in there? They were really wide. So yeah, I just noticed that and put that in a note. Yeah, but that was it.
Yeah.
I've covered everything else. I've spoken all the quotes. Oh, except one thing. Was it
Tell us.
Marcus or Michael at the fashion thing said, have you got her broomstick? It was
Yeah,
just a
Marcus.
large feather.
Yeah, it was like a large feather, and they're like, and the producers did him dirty with that as well. Because firstly, they didn't need to put that into the show, and then
Yeah.
secondly, they highlight this feather and make the ching music on it. Like, it's just like they're so trolling Marcus at this point that
Yes.
he doesn't even know what he's looking at. The guy's delusional. He's been running for 12 hours. He doesn't know where
Yeah,
he is. Michelle, give him a break.
that's funny. No, I thought it was funny. I thought it's like
Yeah.
a broomstick. Hang on, what was I looking at?
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited for the next leg. They're going to
Yeah.
Jordan. Let's see what happens in this next one. Let's see if Linton and Sharik, especially Sharik, can get our act together and actually be competitive in this next league. Otherwise, we might just see
Yeah.
them go straight out. And there is no non-elimination leagues this time. So,
Yes.
no safety. They have to continue to perform. And the other
Mm.
teams, you've got to say at this stage, they're looking like the favorites to stay in the race, especially if you're going to have a half team racing to the pit
Yes.
stop in the next league. So I really hope that she does bring her A game for that league. But Michelle, that's it here for this
Yes.
week of our coverage of the Amazing Race Season 34, Episode 4. Everybody in the live, thank you so much. Lovable Nikki, Venus Boy, and Iga here for being a part of this, asking some great questions. I feel like we got therapy out of the way for Michelle, and she's good to go have a weekend now. She's got it off her chest.
Yeah. Hopefully she doesn't continue next week. But you know what? The Australians watch this on Wednesday night because we're a week behind. So I'm sure I will bring it up again in the episode chat that we have next Wednesday.
Just point people this direction. Say, hey, I got it all off my chest in that podcast. Go and check it out. You know, I was coming in hot. And yeah, that's it. Guys, if you get to this point of the video, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit a like on it. Leave a comment. What do you agree or disagree with? What do you think of, you know, Sharik and her antics here in this last episode? Do you feel like we're being too harsh? Do you guys feel the same about it? Let us know in the comments below, and we will catch you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.